Well, good morning, everybody. For many of you, I'm recognizing a lot of faces from our first listen session. So I appreciate everybody coming back and any new faces. So thank you. Thank you for participating. And also thank you for participating in these conversations and also on the electronic survey side of things. We were able to capture tons of incredible data, which brings us back to what we guaranteed was the return. Our return opportunity today is really this next step in our process to continue to update our community on the information we gathered. So we're really excited about this. Again, my name is Paul Gordon. I serve as the superintendent. This is Scott Harvey, our Chief Communications Officer. I've also got a few other phone friends in the audience. Our Chief Financial Officer, Justin Attaway, and our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, John Pullman as well. And we have other staff members in the room. But again, we're excited to have an opportunity to share what we've learned from all of the different feedback. Today, if you remember me from last time, I walk around a lot. I've been put in a box because we are recording this. But we are going to record today's session so we can put this back out to our community as well. But I'm going to hand it over to Scott Harvey, our Chief Communications Officer, and he'll take it from here.
Okay, and without rehashing for you all of what we've done verbally, we thought we'd share with you a video to really quickly summarize what we've done so far with our Listen, Learn, Return initiative and how we got here. So we will share a video and then we'll get into our presentation today.
Hello, I'm District 303 Superintendent Dr. Paul Gordon. Community engagement has been a priority of mine since I started in the district in July of 2022. Each of our students, staff, parents, and community members play an important role in the success of those we serve. In order to understand where we are as a district and where we want to go, we need your feedback. It was critical that this process allow participants to not only share feedback with us, but enable you to learn the perspectives of one another. Our initiative is called Listen, Learn, and Return. Here's how it works.
Over the past several months, you were invited to participate in several in-person sessions and online surveys. We asked 3 overarching questions. What are the challenges facing our district? What are our opportunities for growth? And what are you proud of in our district? We wanted participants to know what their fellow students, staff, parents, and community members had to say, and how their thoughts resonated across all survey groups. So we gave our in-person participants a chance to share their thoughts in small and large groups, and online participants were able to see and rate the thoughts of others. It was also important that people had a safe space to share honest feedback, and were able to do so anonymously.
We had more than 2,000 participants during our in-person and online surveys. We're incredibly grateful for your thoughts. We've categorized that feedback into 13 total themes, which correspond to a district department or collection of services. The top concerns fall under 4 themes: administration, staff, student services, and operations. These are the themes that will guide our initial action steps and our continued engagement with you moving forward.
To put these 4 themes and their related concerns into perspective, here are some key words they are associated with. Administration, calendar, policy, voice and decision-making. Staff, staffing shortages, pay and salary, professional development. Student services, behavioral intervention, mental health and special education. And operations, overcrowding and safety. We are working with District 303 administrators and staff to review these prominent themes, determine current ways we're addressing these concerns, and the new inspiration we can take from your feedback.
Recognizing the importance of all feedback, District 303 is committed to reviewing ways in which we can address both prominent and infrequent feedback themes to develop clear action steps that meet the needs of all learners and teachers. Our processes will be methodical. While we cannot address all challenges at once, we can address these challenges over time. And with your support, we ask for patience and continued engagement as we develop action steps that are in the best interest of each student, staff, parent, and District 303 community member.
We invite you to future in-person sessions and online opportunities to continue to engage in this process. For more information, including a breakdown of the feedback we received and future meeting dates, visit district.d303.org/LLR. Hopefully that just gives you a quick overview of how we got to this point and really the initiatives we took when we started this Listen, Learn, Return initiative. So as Paul mentioned, the listening was that first step, the listening and the learning. And now we're excited to be in that next phase, in that return, where we can tell you a little bit more about what we've learned. So a quick summary of that video at a glance. We asked 3 overarching questions. What are our challenges, opportunities for growth, and pride? You shared that feedback with us in person and through our electronic survey. We categorized the feedback into 13 total themes, and we've established 4 prominent themes, the ones that were really most pressing amongst our feedback and responders: administration, staff, student services, and operations. So operations is what we want to discuss with you today. So our action steps are really currently being developed, but this is an opportunity to provide a status update for you. And our return sessions are to inform you of that status. So the meeting structure, again, an opportunity today to share action steps for our theme. Where are we at in that process? What have we learned based on your feedback? Where have we been and where are we going? And we wanted to continue to engage you into a dialogue because it was really important that we have that in-person experience with you and also hear your online feedback as well. So we wanted to bring that back in front of you. How can we continue to engage with our community based on this particular theme? So today's structure will really do a deeper dive into the feedback that we received related to operations, and then we will talk a little bit about the action step stages. And then we're going to have you discuss within your tables a couple of questions that we'll pose, and then we'll have a larger group conversation. And then we did ask through the RSVP form for you to submit some questions if you had any in advance. So we had an opportunity to prepare some responses for you. And then of course there'll be some other questions that we will open up for you to share with us tonight. So just again to put it in perspective, some of the feedback that we received. These are from all 3 surveys: challenges, growth, and pride. You can see from our in-person feedback, operations was the highest received in terms of those thoughts on the challenges front. And then from the online and thought exchange piece, we had operations as the 4th most received on the challenges front. So overall, operations thoughts accounted for about 13 to 14% of the feedback that we received. These word clouds kind of put it into perspective for you. You can see really how much people might have shared with us, the key words that were coming up in those responses. So you can see on the thought exchange side, sizes, classrooms, space, buildings, again, related to that operations side. So really, this is why we can designate operations as a prominent theme that we wanted to address with you. Just a quick overview of some of the demographics and people that were involved in taking these surveys. Our top survey participants amongst all themes, in person and online, predominantly our staff and our parents. The grades that they represented were predominantly elementary school and high school. And then the ages that we received most of our feedback from was between that 35 to 54 range. Operations thoughts and the average ratings. So this is important because, as you remember, the online piece allowed you to see the thoughts of others and rate those thoughts. And so we wanted to bring to the forefront the ones that really resonate with people on the operations side. So if you fell into a resident or a staff category, on average, people that saw an operations thought rated it as a 4.0 if you're a resident and a 3.9 as a staff member. If you represented an elementary or a middle school, you saw an operations thought and rated it as a 4.0 or 3.9 respectively. And on the ages side, if you're in that 25 to 34 category, you would rate on average an operations thought of a 4.1 scale. So again, these thoughts for operations really resonated with these groups here. And then I just wanted to share with you some of the actual thoughts. So we had hundreds of thoughts related to this particular theme, but we wanted to actually bring some of those in front of you so you could see them in person. And you have a chance to look at all these thoughts through our district website where we've shared a lot of the data here. So you can see people are talking about the concerns they have with overcrowding within the classes, within the buildings, and how that's impacting what that means for their child, what that means for them as maybe a staff member. And then even on the thought exchange side, we assigned a rating to it. These were a couple of the most prominent thoughts and the highest rated thoughts. And then we just wanted to quickly share with you some of the feedback for those 2 additional surveys. So we asked questions about where our opportunities are for growth and what are your points of pride within our district. So again, some of the key words in our word cloud. And then if you break it down by the operations thought, again, that growth survey, people offering some suggestions for how we can grow within our district and the ways that we might be able to assess and work through our facility needs and challenges. And we're going to give you an opportunity to, in your table today, share some of that specific feedback with us too. And then we did have some thoughts and sharing just about the pride that people have within District 303. We really wanted to get people's perspective there, and we had some thoughts related to operations. So people talking about how they feel safe in our schools, how they really appreciate the secure entrances, well cared for buildings, so you can see some of the ratings there. So again, across all of our surveys, challenges, growth, and pride, you've got people talking about the operations theme. So now it's time to take you through the action steps and where we're at in that process, because this is the key reason we're coming to you today and hosting these return meetings. So really we put this into 3 stages, and one is that public feedback, which we just shared with you an overview of. So just communicating to you as part of those action steps and understanding as a district what feedback we received related to this theme. And in a moment we'll talk a little bit about the current data and the current planning or recent history that we have with regard to facility planning. And then we'll talk about what's on the horizon with operations. What can we look forward to further inform our decision making with this theme. So we really wanted to bring you up to speed on some of the recent work with regard to operations. And I want to take you back to our Facility Master Plan initiative, which got started in 2021. And in July of that year, we had our Wold architect firm that we partner with received a Facility Master Plan from our Educational Facility Planning Committee. And that committee's task and charge statement from our board was to develop a long-range facility master plan that would guide the district for 10 years. And so we looked at that, those findings from our Education Planning Committee, and we worked with our architects over the next few months to develop construction scenarios, and those were presented to the board in spring of 2022. And those covered 4 different scenarios at various cost levels and various needs for each of our buildings and our schools. And so we determined at that time we really wanted to look at more data to complete and provide finality to that facility master plan. And so we tabled a lot of the major decisions related to our facility master plan and continued to work toward developing more data for that to help guide our decision making. But along the way, we still continue to reference and really keep top of mind the work of our planning committee and the work that that plan provided for us. So understanding that the development scenarios that were provided are still needs within our district, so they continue to be top of mind as we work towards a final master plan. Along the way, in this past fall, we developed guiding principles through our Business Services Committee. We actually had our Business Services Committee prepare 13 guiding principles to help really guide us in what those facility master plan priorities would be. When it comes to making decisions on facilities, we had those priority checklists that we can mark. So the top 3, for example, would be safety and security as 1, accessibility as 2, and the third one is really maximizing the productivity and capability within our existing buildings. So just as an example of some of those guiding principles that we will absolutely lean into as we work towards that final master plan. And then the other key piece that we are really excited about was the partnership that we established with RSP Associates. So that is the firm that's really doing a lot of the additional data gathering that we absolutely need to move our facility master plan forward. And that includes doing an assessment of our enrollment and our building capacity. And of course, you can see the planning partners along the way that have been instrumental in this process. So next steps. Today, we're bringing more information to you and really coming to you to fulfill that promise of providing constant updates on what we're doing within this theme. And that enrollment and capacity study from RSP Associates is absolutely something we're excited about. Within a few weeks, that firm will be delivering their report to our Business Services Committee. So that's really going to help provide more clarity and data that we were hoping to receive to move our facility master plan forward. And after that, it really becomes something that our Business Services Committee will take on to review those findings and identify the next steps forward. So again, that will be on February 23rd, our Business Services Committee, and the presentation that we'll receive from RSP Associates. And then I just wanted to talk about the other things that happen on a daily basis with regard to facilities. Of course, when you're talking about master planning, it can be a lengthy process, and there's a lot of steps that go into that decision making so that we're making really informed decisions that are going to guide us long term. But of course, there's the day-to-day operations on the facility side that we're absolutely mindful of, and things that don't necessarily fall under a master plan, but still can be very impactful to our district in the long run, in the long term. And that includes some things that we're excited to explore this summer, including enhancing security in our buildings through a key card access system. Also, just some maintenance that we need to be mindful of, and some bigger than others, such as boiler replacements at 3 sites, pool plaster replacement at our North High School swimming pool. And then next summer, we're excited to start exploring how we can provide efficient air conditioning services within our gyms and cafeterias. So just things that are really kind of happening separate from our master planning process, but really still valuable things that will guide us with our facility master plan and our facilities in general. We recognize that there's work that has been done, there's work that needs to be done. So there's some other questions that were sent to us in advance. We're going to do our best to answer those, and then any additional questions before we leave out today. So, and our first question, will the district be exploring a potential school boundary change?
Yes, it is why the board approved RSV to really look into this. What it means, we don't know yet. I'm not guaranteeing anything. Ultimately, that's always going to be the board's decision, but yes.
What are we doing with the facilities plan?
So it's a lot of these conversations that we're having around our facilities, and really how are we using our facilities? What was Haynes? What was Fox Ridge? How are we looking at Lincoln? So we're really thinking also about, we have some ADA compliance issues that are major in some of our elementary schools, Lincoln, Wasco, Wild Rose. There are some, if you have some mobility issues, be it a young person or an adult, there are many situations where you literally have to go around the entire building and come in the back door to be able to access the building. That's not okay. And again, why I'm really proud of the board around setting guiding principles that we need to look at, as Scott mentioned, safety and accessibility, that's huge. It's really hard when you were telling a young person or an adult, hey, sorry, we want you here, but you have to do all these other steps before you can access the building. So we have some of those pieces. So really having a deep understanding. John Pullman, who's our Assistant Superintendent of Operations, what he and Wold have done, have taken a comprehensive review. And this is not the exciting stuff. How do our roofs look? How do our parking lots look? And I know this is the stuff that gets parents all excited, like, woo-hoo, I am going to do a bond for those things. What's the infrastructure? Our boilers. How have we been maintaining our information? So John, Wold, and then we reached out to our principals, because our principals know our buildings really well as well. Like, what are those pieces that you're seeing? So we're having a comprehensive understanding of the buildings themselves, how we use them, but also behind the walls, the roofs, because these are highly, highly expensive facilities to maintain. Just like your homes, if you're not taking care of your roof, and 20 years later, you're like, why do we have water coming in? For us, the costs are huge if we're not doing a good job of maintaining. So John is putting together a 5 and 10-year plan for us. That will be part of our conversation. So the board has this really big view of, oh my goodness, just on our current facilities, X dollars will be needed to do these maintenance projects over time. So we're taking, again, I think a holistic view of our current facilities, how they're being used, and the maintenance and operation of those buildings as well.
All right, our next question talks about Fox Ridge, because I know that's come up already.
Yeah, that continues to be a theme that will come through in the studies, and ultimately the board will make those decisions around how are lines going to be drawn, if that's what they choose to do. I'm going to say if. Again, the superintendent takes direction from the board on all of these pieces, but that has to be a consideration. I think we just got to be, as somebody said, that's that transparency of how we're going to look at this. If the board charges the superintendent to look at boundaries, we have to look at all situations. We can't be narrow focused in saying only the facilities that we're currently using. But like when we closed it, there will be other ripples if it's opened. We have a very large, very successful, very popular EC program, which is critical to education, that we're engaging our youngest learners, our 3 and 4 year olds. We literally had 101 people apply to be a part of the EC Center. We only had spaces for 60, so roughly 40 families could not participate in our amazing Gold Star EC program that significantly makes a difference in the lives of kids. So that's a thing too. So those are all the things that we think about. But yeah, Fox Ridge, everything is going to be on the table if the board gives me that direction.
So another reference to Fox Ridge and then just future planning to, again, ensure our growth patterns are following an accurate planning method.
So one of those pieces, if any of you ever drive by like Norton Creek, they have that wide range of dirt that will soon no longer be dirt. It will be homes. There are major projects in that section of our school district, and large single-family homes are planned for that. So with that, and we engage all of our different cities, because some of the pieces they're just thinking about, but we need them to tell us, what are you thinking about? Because what we don't want to get into is kind of some of the frustration all of you are mentioning. We knew that was coming. Why didn't somebody ask that question? I mean, honestly, what are they doing with the mall over there? Anymore, malls in America are not the revenue generator they used to be in the 80s and a little bit into the 90s. Most of those need to have multi-use family components to them to make them a really vibrant community there. So we're looking at that. We're engaging, again, the demographer, because they've also reached out to all of our city agencies to engage in those conversations. What's on the horizon? Where are you at? What are you doing? So we can have that around our census. Somebody mentioned earlier, so in Kane County, our birth rates are low. They are, so that's a really important factor that we lean into, are the current birth rates. However, as somebody said, it also doesn't take into the fact that many of our communities are turning over. And that's something that we really have got to be thoughtful about. So we've got, in some parts, aging. I'm in that aging group where we're saying, you know what, my kids are gone. and I want to downsize. I want to do this. And a family with 2, 3, 4 kids are moving in and repopulate us. So I've heard that story time and time again by just staff members like, Paul, our street, it's crazy. When I first got here, it was a lot of great grandparents and fun. It was great. We always had babysitters. And now we just have play dates all over the place. So we're seeing that in different areas throughout. So those are important considerations.
So this speaks a little bit about our involvement in, or are we consulted on some of those developments?
Yes.
Middle schools have overcrowded hallways, limited space for teachers. Is there a plan to address this?
Yeah, that one will be even more challenging as we look at it, but I'm anxious to get back the results from the demographer. Where are we at? What does that look like, sound like, feel like within our schools? I'm in the schools. I'm in every school at least once a month, and part of that is walking the hallway, seeing what's going on, being engaged in our schools. But across the board, we've got to look at how we use our facilities. Where are we educating our students? How do we do this work? Looking at the hallways. We have large middle schools and high schools in D303. We just do. We have large middle and high schools, and how do we move all those kids in and out, especially adolescents? I was middle school principal, middle school teacher. How do we do that really well and thoughtfully for our adolescents in doing that work? So that's going to be a key part of these conversations as well.
This actually came up in some of the suggestions, but addition to that middle school potential solution and those mobiles.
I'm not saying no to it, but I'm not a big fan of mobiles for one reason. Once they're here, they never leave you. So when I first got to Glen Ellen, they had 32, 34 portables. Because once you start adding them, you keep adding them. Because it's cheaper at the end of the day to add a couple portables and like, okay, that will fix it. Again, Glen Ellen had 5 schools. We had 32 portables. It just grows, and it's no knock on anyone, but they continue to populate. But mobiles also are not just inexpensive because you have to put the infrastructure underground. They don't just drop off a portable, drop it there, and like put kids in there tomorrow. It's got to be wired. The electricity, the plumbing, all of those pieces. And at the end of the day, I think we have to think about the safety of them. They're not my favorite, but they are short-term if we agree that they're short-term. But quite honestly, once you have them, if you build it, they will come, and we will use it. As educators, we have our, there's this urban sprawl. There's also school sprawl. We just do it. If there's space, we will use it and eat it up. So I just want us to be incredibly thoughtful about mobiles because they can serve a purpose short term, but we have to have a commitment. What are we doing long term? I'm a big brick and mortar person. I think that's where young people should learn best. That's where we would want to be educated best. We should have that standard for ourselves in D303 while recognizing there's always that opportunity, because to get from here to where we need to go may take us a day or two.
Classes, specials on a cart?
Yeah, this is happening. It may not happen in your school, but we have many schools that have art on the cart, all the specials on the cart where they're rolling in, they're coming into the core classroom teacher, and that's where we're doing this work. Or it's off into a little different space. We have quite a bit of that. And here's the reality. We have space issues, as somebody was alluding to earlier around when they were talking about cap and send. We have space issues almost everywhere. This is not a simple solution because we have north, south, east, west, literally from Munhall to Belgraham to Anders. We have large elementaries for the most part, minus Lincoln. And many of those grade levels are at capacity, and we end up capping and sending families. I think Mr. Buxton said we have 41 students who are in the cap and send. So that's 41 students who we've said, even though you potentially could see that elementary school, we got to send you over here. And that doesn't feel good. I mean, with my first couple of weeks here in the district, I'm like, what is this thing? What are we doing here? And as I understood it, you get it. For us, somebody had mentioned this earlier, we do try to add sections. It's not about this school has this school has that. If we have the numbers, but most importantly, if we have the space. That was the number one question. Anytime somebody's asking, can we go from 3 sections to 4 sections? Where would you put it? So we're engaged with John. We're engaged with the principal. Where would you put it? And on the roof is not an answer. So we've got to be really thoughtful about where is that section going to go. And that's what ends up occurring for us.
Solutions to help traffic, seating, physical comfort, health for performances or any activities at some of the facilities.
So I believe this one alludes to an elementary music concert that we probably weren't in our best venue for it, quite honestly. And I think the principals and the executive director of elementary school recognized it. Kind of small, kind of cramped. So we've recognized this piece, but for the most part, we do a good job. We have really nice facilities, in our middle schools and high schools when we need to move our elementaries, because elementary parents, you show up. If our kids are involved, elementary parents show up. So we want to make sure people feel welcomed and not in a cramped, overcrowded space that you have wires and other things tripping and stumbling. And we recognize when we stumble, trip, and fall, and we try to make sure that we're doing better around our facilities.
And this is the last one we have in terms of comparing our buildings to ensure equity.
This is the tough one. Somewhere around here, somebody talked about the class size. That is a true statement. Based off of when a building was built, how large is that classroom? And they were not wrong when they said there's probably classrooms of 700 to classrooms of 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,500. And that happens over time because some of our buildings were built, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100, yeah, we can keep going down. And their standard for class size was very different. Today, most architects, most superintendents, most assistant superintendents of operation, most teachers really like to be right in that 950 square feet. That's a good size classroom that gives you flexibility. But to change that would be hundreds of millions of dollars to create equity there across, just on the classroom size. Everybody gets I'll just say a 950 square foot room. Almost impossible to do. Just one thing that you're going to always get with me, I'm going to shoot you straight where I'm at, what I see from what we're doing. There's also the other equity pieces that I've heard around a field house at East, no field house at North, those pieces. Those are pieces that can come under consideration in a larger financial conversation the board may have to engage in later. How do we make sure that we have some of those pieces later on in doing that work? But that's a hard one. I've literally from day one I heard that like, this school doesn't have this, and I'm like, I know this school was built 55 years ago. This school was built 20 years ago, and you just don't have those same amenities, which are really nice. Because, you look at, again, I'm going to go to Lincoln. If anybody's been to Lincoln, you see their gym. You compare that to any of the other elementary schools, it's like you've walked into a time machine, like, oh boy, I am in the Wayback Machine here.
So now we wanted to give our tables a chance to have some discussions amongst yourselves. So we're going to give you a couple of questions and about 5 minutes per question to have a dialogue, and then asking maybe one person from your table to share a summary. And our first one is, how have class and building sizes in District 303 impacted you and your children? To the extent that you feel comfortable, feel free to have that conversation at your tables, and we'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we look forward to hearing from you. And so you might have already talked about it within your groups, and we'll give you a little bit more time to share some feedback with us. What do you think we can do as a district to best address overcrowding concerns in our classrooms and buildings? And certainly we received some of this feedback when we asked that opportunities for growth question, right? And we'll give you another chance to, in your table groups, share some of that, and then we'll have a larger group discussion. So take another 5 minutes or so. We definitely wanted to leave some time for any additional questions.
It will be the big old report that they deliver to whatever that we're getting, the community will get.
Okay, perfect.
When it comes to where the board is going to make some decisions about the allocation of funds, as John, myself, Justin Attaway present all the data to the board around the 5 and 10 year kind of needs within our district, we will be talking to the board about, here are all the dollars. You will see how much it costs to do all these pieces and why. Again, it's really critical that the board took action on the guiding principles. Those guiding principles will really help the board make some decisions about what are the most critical things. How do we make sure that our buildings are opened on a daily basis? We don't have water leaks. We have heating occurring. That, to me, that's what the board told me in that conversation when they made those decisions. That safety, accessibility are going to be 1 and 2 as they go through that. But will we be showing the community that document? Absolutely. I think it's important that the community understands how much these things cost. Those are really important things to understand about how we're using our dollars. Where do dollars go, and how do dollars continue to have our largest facility, where we put our largest amount of dollars is into our facilities. I mean, the community owns these really, really expensive buildings. And I think it's being good stewards that we keep up these really, really expensive buildings and expensive buildings to build. So yes, on those pieces. One of the pieces that most people don't know, it's part of the state funds about 80% of our staff here, because these are for young people who have demonstrated over time many different struggles from attendance and other pieces. So, but roughly 80 to 85% of our staffing is covered by the state, because these young people have fallen into that category of attendance issues, behavioral issues, and there's, I think, 5 to 7 criteria that we hit. So the district, this is not a solely district program that is funds it. This is a program that the lion's share is funded by the state to support young people, because we know every young person who drops out of school, the burden on the society is 10 to 15 times greater in the long run if we do not get them a diploma. If they don't have a diploma when they walk out of here, you will pay for it tenfold in the long run. And it's critical for that. But that's a misunderstanding of how we fund this program. And one of the pieces that I forgot to say, on Wednesdays, our Compass students are actually out in the field. They're out in our community. They are engaged in internships and other service opportunities, and our staff are engaged with them as they're out in our community. That's why you don't see them here on Wednesdays. If this were a regular school day, we'd literally, lunch would be rocking and rolling. You would see kids everywhere here. So Wednesdays is the day they're in our community doing internships, doing community service, doing all those different pieces. Those are big developments. That will take a little time, but we have to say, okay, sooner or later, in 5 years probably, you're going to have the vast majority built. And to your point, this is a destination district. Those will be sold. It sounds really good. It's really hard to do. Every time I've done this, that is a desire by the community that, you know, the elementary feeds into this middle school and this middle school feeds into that high school. Generally, it doesn't work that perfectly. There's a lot of people who get that, but we know that some of our elementary kids do go to 2 different middle schools, and then they come back to the high school, or they do the elementary middle, and then they go to 2 different. So it's hard to do. I can't promise it. I do know that many community members really would like that, to see that continued articulation up with their friends. But I see the positive side of also mixing students, because it is sometimes nice to have some new humans to interact with. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think it's always a conversation that we need to have with our staff, with our students, but really, and our parents, and understanding the ripples of that. So in my former district, we did that. And there were some ripples. There are some ripples. We were a little bit more unique because we were more rural, and we didn't have the same connective tissue with all of the other high schools around us. And you hate saying that high schools and their after-school activities trump everything, but oftentimes high school's activities trump everything, and when things start, because activities have to start. For many of because we have 2 large high schools, we have many teams. Like, you know, you've got varsity, you got JV, and then you've got some A, B, C teams as well, and all those take time to get played in that evening. But I think it's an important piece for us to consider as we talk about how do we reimagine schools and how do we do this work and what's actually best for kids and not just the adults. I think it's something that we've got to lean into and understand the data, the research behind it, and make thoughtful decisions.
Yeah, good question. The schedule for those external meetings hasn't been developed any further beyond today. What we are doing is some additional internal conversations regarding some of those prominent themes. So student services was another one that we had discussed earlier. A lot of the conversation behind behavioral intervention. We're going to have some internal staff conversations on that first before we go ahead and continue to have that dialogue with our community, because some of these pieces do require us as a staff to really look a little bit more internally, like what are we doing, what are the processes that really work for us, and how can we improve before then coming back to our community to share what those action steps may be. So that one hasn't been scheduled on an external side, but we are working on it internally. The other 2 would be on the administration side. We just talked about a little bit about the school schedule and calendar. It actually falls under that piece. Staff as well, and some of the things that we're doing there. So those meetings have not been scheduled yet, but what we wanted to do here, given that we've got a pretty good history on the operations side and a lot of really exciting things coming up from that demographer study, we definitely wanted to come to you early in this return process to talk operations. We would do it by theme. Yeah, we would do it by theme because it's important that, as you see today, when we've taken a lot of our time, rightfully so, to discuss one specific theme, and there are all kinds of categories within that theme. So it's important that we take it one at a time so that we're properly addressing the issue and concerns for that particular theme.
You have the data. The data's out there on our schools. But what most people don't do is dig for a half a second a little bit deeper. Yeah. Who are the young people in our schools? What's the percentage of brand new English learners in a school who are taking the same English-based assessment? How are they doing? And then, or pulling it apart and saying, how are the non-English learners doing in that school as well? And really starting to understand. So when we say they're bad schools, generally what we're saying, let's be really honest, there's poverty. There's the second language issue. It's not bad schools, bad children, bad educators. There's different life experiences occurring in our schools. And those are one of the things that we forget to think about. Oftentimes, it's not a bad school. There are young people who are striving, who are with some challenges, who are working through and growing, our young people. And I think for many people who've been in D303 for a long time, it's hard to understand that things do change. Every district I've been part of changed. I remember way back in the time machine, being at a school that was used to be almost 95% Caucasian and fairly affluent. And as the district changed over time, it really changed. And that's hard at times for a community to understand. And I don't blame a community. I blame us, me, the me's of the world. And how do we do a better job of communicating the story of our schools? The story of Davis, the story of Richmond, the story of Anderson, the story of Munhall, the story of every one of our schools and who's there. Because we should celebrate our young people and what they're working through, while still recognizing we have work to do academically. Anybody who asks me, what is your goal? My goal is for every student, when they walk out of here with a D303 diploma, that they have multiple doorways to open. Unfortunately, right now, for some of our young people, they only have one doorway to open. And that generally is going right into the workforce for a non-living wage job. That does not sustain an economy long term. What we have to do is multiple doorways. So a young person says, if I want to go into the trades, I know exactly why I'm doing this. Or if I want to go into a 2-year or 4-year or whatever I want to do. Those are the things that we have to do better. Environment always has a place in it. I'll also say this, through the equity studies that were done last year, one of the, and I say it every time, for people who listen to the board meetings, one of our board members, Kate Bell's here, she hears me say it on a regular basis. We have an inconsistent approach to rigor in our classrooms. So what that means is, across the board, first grade is not first grade across the entire district. And that's a problem. And that's something that I'm going to be addressing. Second grade, algebra. We have to be teaching the grade level standards and beyond for our young people. So we hold that high. While we have that bar high, we also, what we call in education, scaffold to make sure that our young people can achieve those pieces while we don't lower the bar. We can't lower the bar. We have to continue supporting young people wherever they're at on their academic journey, but the bar is the bar, and that's where we need to get our young people to. So what I equate when people say that's a bad school, I think oftentimes they think about it being in a poor neighborhood or a different neighborhood than the neighborhood that they're from or the neighborhood they would like to be in. I say that because I've got a few days of doing this work with communities, and when we hear that, that's generally what it means. When we say this school is really great, I look around and I say, what's the income level? What are all those pieces when we say that? Because we know, research is clear, I'm not saying anything new, poverty matters. It just does. For our young people, the research, 50, 100 years of research on this. So what do we do? And I don't use it as an excuse. What do we do to transform their lives so they can have all those doors open. How do we hold that? And I know those pieces are holding the standard high, getting our young people there, no exceptions, and rolling that piece through. Saying it is easy. Doing it from our classroom teachers is really hard. When you have a classroom of 25, 28, whatever the number is, now I need to make sure that I'm differentiating, and we have supports. My role as superintendent, one of my biggest roles beyond the safety of our students, which is job one, is to create really great structures that allow our system to be more effective every day. That's my job, is to make sure we're a little better every day, that our young people have better opportunities every day. And I do that through thinking about structures, about how do we organize ourselves. The system are all the people and how we engage in that conversation and how we move those pieces forward. That's the work that I'm engaging right now to understand how we work. It's why I'm in schools, every school once a month. So I'm walking into classrooms. I'm seeing how we're teaching. I'm watching. I'm having conversations with my executive directors of learning and teaching. What are we doing? How do we organize ourselves? Can we do it better? And what the research says around where are we going, what are we doing? Because every parent, every family wants the best for their young person. Every educator in this district wants what's best. What I have to make sure we're doing is clearing the field and giving them the structures to do that work to the best of their ability. That's my second most important job in this organization, is really organizing the structures in which we work from to allow our teachers to be as all of you said, and it's one of our pride points, and it should be, is our educators. They are working their tails off every day to make sure your children, our community, our kids are in their best place humanly possible to thrive in this world. It is really trying to understand what we do and how we do our work better so we can continue doing this work. Do I have some hypothesis? I do. I do. But I also know what research tells me. And it came through in that report. Every student has to have grade level standards and beyond. You have to hold that bar high. We have to support our educators, and what that looks like, sounds like, feels like. We've got to make sure they have the structures and systems in place to do the work. That's on me. That's on me, because I want every student to be able to open whatever that doorway is. That's my goal for each of our young people, is to have doorways open to them.
I know there's probably some lingering questions, right? And we've got an email where you can reach out to us, continue to engage. Perhaps you want to join us this evening, and maybe there's some other questions that we can answer there. We have exceeded our time. We certainly appreciate everyone taking a couple of hours of their day to learn more about the operations theme. Yes, we have other themes, 13 total, that were presented to us, and certainly we're addressing a lot of those, and we'll eventually come to our community and tell you where we're at in that process. So again, thank you for talking about operations with us. And again, if you have any additional questions, there's an email there.